In Sefer Devarim, Moshe Rabbeinu was giving over some very, very important Yesodos, foundational principles to Klal Yisrael. He explains to them various mitzvos in the Torah, and he gives them Musar as well. He gives them, as they're standing on the cusp of entering into Eretz Yisrael, a history lesson, looking back at what took place in the Midbar, and the lessons that can be learned from the various mistakes that they made along the way. And then Moshe Rabbeinu tells them that HaKadosh Baruch Hu appears to Moshe, and he tells Moshe, Hashem Elokeinu, Diber Elinu B'charev Lemor, Rav Lachem Sheves Barazah, the time came when we were at Har Sinai, and Hashem said it's time to go. Panu Usu Lachem, go, Derech Bo Har HaMori, Baravo Bashvil B'Negev, until Nahar Piras. And then it says, Re'ena Sati L'Vnechem Es Aretz. Go and look and see that I placed in front of you this land. Bo Urashu Aretz, go and conquer the land that Hashem promised to your forefathers. And that was the beginning. That was the initial plan before things went awry. But if you notice, there's something strange about the pasuk. Re'eh is in the singular, but it says Re'ena Sati Lifnechem. Lifnechem is in the plural. So why that shift suddenly from Re'eh? Something very, very similar in the beginning of Parshas Re'eh as well. Re'eh Anochi Nosein Lifnechem. Why is there a shift from the singular to the plural? So the Chaim HaKadosh notices it in Parshas Re'eh, but he also notices it here as well. And he says the following. Re'eh Anochi Nosati Lifnechem. Omru B'tchila Re'eh Loshin Yachad. It begins with Re'eh in the singular. V'gomar Omer Lashon Rabbim, and it concludes in the Rabbim. You see, when you see something, everybody sees the same way. Baruch Hashem, a person's eyes work, so we all see whatever it is that there is, and we see it in one way. There's no distinction in how we see. But in who the person is, in who the gavra is, there is great distinctions. That's why it says lifnechem. And that's his explanation. He suggests that people are different, and people are going to experience things differently. But everybody, when it comes to seeing, that is objective. But I want to try and maybe expound on what he's saying with the following idea. See, everybody sees things the same way, but everybody interprets them differently. See, we can see what is technically in front of us, but how we see it in terms of understanding it, in terms of the lens through which we understand it, is going to be very, very different. And that, I think, is what Moshe Rabbeinu was telling Klal Yisrael, especially at this moment. There's a lot to look at. And you can look back at the entire story. You can look at the things that happen in your life. You can look at the things that happen in the history of Klal Yisrael. And everybody's going to see the actual things that happen in the exact same way. But the way a person understands it, the way a person internalizes, the way a person walks away with whatever those lessons are, is going to be very different. And it's part of the task that we have, is to create a filter through which we see everything. And that filter is the Torah. The filter is understanding that the things that we experience have a spiritual lens through which we need to understand them. And not everything can be understood on the surface level. And sometimes there are layers. And the Torah wants us to be thinking people. The Torah wants us to be people who try and understand more. And that, I think, is Re'ena Sati of Nechemas Arts. Eretz Yisrael, on the surface, it could be the same. Everybody sees the same land. But the connection to it is going to be different. The way you allow your heart and your soul to connect to it, the way you allow yourself, how your connection is going to be, that is going to be different. And that is really what Sefer Devarim is about. Moshe Rabbeinu was trying to teach Klal Yisrael that there's a lens through which you need to look at everything that happens in your lives. And that goes backwards, and maybe that's an explanation that many ask, why is it that he hints? Rashi comments that the places that are listed don't all appear anywhere. Moshe Rabbeinu is hinting to some of the mistakes that took place. Why is he only hinting to them? So some explain because this is not the same generation who made the mistakes. Those people were gone. They were punished. There's a new generation. But there are remnants of it. And the remnants affect us. And they change our perspective. And Moshe Rabbeinu wants to make sure that we understand that our task is to create a beautiful filter. One in which we understand the value of the people that are acting, and we try to give people the benefit of the doubt. One in which the Torah is the lens, halacha is the lens through which we view anything. And that's Re'eh Nasati Lifnechem. Behold, You could see all the same thing, but I put it in front of you as individuals. And what you're going to see when that moment comes when you come into Eretz Yisrael is going to be different. As the Rechaim Kodesh says, based on who you are, your erech, but based on the filters that you have created in order to interpret events in life. And that, I think, is a critical lesson before Tisha B'Av. We have the opportunity, when things happen, when somebody wrongs us, when somebody does something, we can look at it through a variety of different lenses, even if the objective things took place. And that is on us, and that is our responsibility, and that is the opportunity of Re'ina Sati Lifnechem.